This week on Barbell Shrugged, we're going old school. It's just me, Mike, and Doug talking training. Specifically, we're talking strength training progressions that are going to make you stronger starting right now. It's also Halloween. Isn't that right, Max? Yeah. Cowabunga, dude! Cowabunga, dude! Barbell Shrugged is brought to you by you. To learn more about how you can support the show, go to barbellshrugged.com and sign up for the newsletter.
This is an issue that keeps coming up. Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Mike Bledsoe. I'm sitting here in Memphis, Tennessee in Chris Moore's fabulous office.
Probably a study, actually.
Yeah, a study.
Yeah.
Here with Doug Larson across the way from me. Yes. And we have zero guests.
We haven't done this in a while.
We haven't done this in forever, yeah. We have CTP behind the camera. He'll probably throw up some questions here and there. Today we're going to be talking about strength progressions and, you know, just about life in general. You know how it goes here.
We'll go off the wagon, then Doug will bring us back on point, but it'll be a fun journey.
Mike's been the best about that lately. I've been loving getting off the wagon, and Mike's like, no, we need to like bring it back.
Yeah, so we go through phases where we'll take
every once in a while we switch roles.
Yeah,
temporarily.
What was the movie in the 80s, CTP, where Fred Savage and the other guy switched personalities, like switching places?
Big.
That's another one.
Oh, that was
I think
a different
there's
one.
lots of
Fred
those
Savage?
movies. Yeah,
It was Fred Savage and Tom Hanks and Big.
Oh, really?
No, you get that mixed up, man. I don't think that's not the same movie. There's like this movie that exists 5 times, and yeah. But it does happen. Let's not get too far in the weeds.
Before we get off into some movies,
See, he's bringing us back on.
Fred Savage.
make sure to go to barbellshrugged.com, sign up for the newsletter. If you're wondering how we keep this fantastic podcast going, traveling all over the place, introducing you to the most amazing people in the world, it's because of some of the things that happen behind the scenes, and we'll tell you a lot about what happens back there if you sign up for the newsletter.
And there's some characters coming up that you want to explore more of as soon as possible. Like there's some shows coming up where you want to know quickly what's going on with them. We're going to surprise and knock your socks off, I think.
Should be very, very fun. Talking about strength progressions today. So we're talking about this because we have a lot of people that ask, you know, what's the best squat program? And I talk to people in the gym, or I'm having dinner with some folks, and they just got done with one squat program. They got some good results, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to try this other one now. Or they'll get halfway through another squat program and like, oh, it totally destroyed me. Like, this one worked real well. It ran for 12 weeks. And then I just randomly chose this other one. And for some reason, it's not working out. Maybe I should go back to that one that worked for me. Or I got bored with that one. It's too much of the same. And so I want to like try something new.
They pick out programs like new albums. Like listen to it until they get tired of it, and they try to find another album they like.
Right, yeah.
But they forget that that's not really what makes a program a program. Like that's what you see, but the sort of the mechanics of it, I guess, is a good way of saying it. The driving force is a system of progression. Like if you don't understand that, then nothing will work for you.
Well, a lot of people have put out like 12, 16-week, or even only 4-week programs, and people treat them as these isolated events. Well, I'll do this over here, and then I'll do this over here.
Like you're making a soup.
But well, I mean, going to the recipe type thing, that would be like saying, I really don't like eating turmeric by itself, but when I add it into this recipe, it now like it's the spice or whatever. Are
you into turmeric right now? There's a lot of evidence on turmeric in there.
Dude, I love my turmeric.
Isn't that shit like magical?
It's definitely good for inflammation.
Somebody's going to say, you guys are being sponsored by Big Turmeric, aren't you? You're sneaking those turmeric plugs into the show.
Well, that turmeric lobbyist got his claws in me pretty deep.
That's it looks like little versions of ginger, right?
It is. I actually consume turmeric probably on a daily basis.
I use that instead of ginger in my juice sometimes.
All right, we're off in the weeds already.
But that's a hint. That's a little chunk of value for people who are making juice.
Yeah. So, anyways, it's cool to try. It's cool to try out these isolated programs. It's a lot of fun to try out different things, see what things jive for you. I personally have tried out a ton of different things, and then some programs I'm like, like, I am bored out of my mind. My body feels bored. Things aren't clicking. It's not right. And there's been other programs where I like, oh my God, this is really resonating with me. This is making sense. I'm getting stronger. The recovery time is just perfect. I can party on Saturday just a little bit and still recover and all that kind of stuff.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's sensible.
Just a little bit?
Just a little bit.
Come on, Michael.
Well, a little bit for me.
I do think it's interesting how you said earlier about how people treat the strength program as its own isolated thing. Like they can do a strength program and that's like what they add on top of everything that they're already doing.
Right.
Or even if they are hopping programs, you know, basically randomly in some cases, they're not actually even stopping they're not stopping the current program that they're doing. They just add on a new program.
Right.
We see that all the time. Like, well, we have our Muscle Gain Challenge and our Road to Regionals program, and we just added Shredded and Bikini. Every time we launch a new program, one of the questions I get inevitably from like half dozen people is, can I do all these workouts on top of all the workouts I'm already doing at my gym? And I'm like, no, this is a comprehensive program. We're handling all the workouts for you. If you every once in a while want to like go to your gym and still do a workout with your, you know, all your friends and your crew, and you want to switch out a workout here and there, or you want to say, hey, you know, you guys are doing this workout today. I have this workout program for me. If you want to come with me and do it with me, you know, you can still work out with your friends. You don't have to like work out by yourself forever. But they always, inevitably, every single time we launch, someone wants to know if they can just add 5 workouts a week to the 5 or 10 or 15 workouts they're already doing that week. In some people's cases, and I'm like, you can't just add workouts. You have to like either switch programs or you can add like a few things here and there. You can't just put 2 programs together and call it your program.
You know what it's like? It's like if you went out. Like I left here and I went out shopping, like everything I needed, but I also saw that somebody was offering really awesome dogs for sale. And it was such a bargain and they were cute and I loved it. So I got it and I took it home.
You put it in your stew?
No. Let's say no. Come on, dude. I was like, what in the shit was that supposed if you got a dog and brought it home and your parents were like, or your family was like, we don't like dogs, or somebody just didn't like the dog, they want another kind of dog. If you just brought an element into your home, it would disturb everything. If you didn't think about how it would sort of jive. Or if you didn't see how other sort of key things in your household would work with that thing. So in your life training, you bring in a big, key, important thing like strength training, and then if you're also working with other coaches and stuff, you're offending them. They have ideas that are not maybe jiving with the other ideas. You're trying to plug things together that may not get along at all, and you're going to find out by injuring yourself or wasting time or having a shitty result.
Yeah, or like Mike was talking about the recipe idea earlier, like if you are baking cookies because you want cookies and then you decide, I don't want cookies anymore, now I want to have like a loaf of bread, and then you decide, I want the goal of a loaf of bread, and instead of just switching the whole recipe and just using a bread recipe to have a loaf of bread, you take all your cookie ingredients and all your bread ingredients and you just mash them all together and you hope you get bread.
Yeah.
You're going to get something, but it's not going to be bread.
It's not going to be bread. It might be
sounds
awesome.
good.
It might be terrible.
It's probably better than bread. It's going to taste awesome. It's got chocolate in it and sugar.
But
maybe.
But you're not going to get fit.
It might turn. Yeah.
It's going to be an epic failure is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But I want cookie bread. You got to make that shit for me, Doug.
Yeah, and you got to consider, too, people are jumping into programs a lot of times that are written for someone more advanced. Don't jump into Kendrick Ferris's program. It took him like 20 freaking years to get to where he can handle the training volume that he's doing today.
I think I was talked to on Travis's podcast, Barbell Life. I pointed out to him, like, people forget, like, they want.
Yeah, that's what made me think of it. Was your
wasn't
podcast
that?
with
I was
him.
like, that sounds familiar, but like, yeah, you look at Kendrick now, and people go, how did Kendrick get so awesome? Like, what's he doing? I want to do, Kyle Pierce's programming too. And you would go down and you would learn stuff, but what you forget is like, dude, I remember all of us sitting around. It might have been like 2006. Doug, you were here. So did you get in 2006 into grad school? So I think we would pull up on like computers, on our massive laptops at the time, like in the training hall.
Universal laptops that weighed 15 pounds.
With a big fucking big monitor computers that were in the lab. But pulling up like a video of this young kid, this Kendrick Ferris guy doing a squat jerk and going, what in the fuck?
Well,
He's
it wasn't a squat jerk.
He didn't squat jerk back then.
It was a kick jerk.
Kick jerk. Yeah.
That's the only reason I knew who he was, because I was like, what is that guy doing? I've never seen that before.
Like, that is a terrible jerk.
It looks horrible.
Yes, that's 2006. Now it's 2014. So and then he was not a beginner then. He had already been grinding. So you got to think, for him, his recipe to get to where he is now, where he's a sponsored athlete, an Olympian, and sought after author, a speaker, and a really good guy. Man, he's been working on that a long time. Yeah. He went through a lot of stages of just like doing a lot of practice.
Yeah, so don't follow
building a lot of key habits before he fucking worried about everything else.
So don't follow Kendrick's training today.
Go back
to his coach Kyle. Go back to,
It's like, why would you
Dr. Kyle Pierce and be like,
How'd you build this guy?
What did Kendrick do when he was 14? And can you give it to me when I'm 14?
Can I go back in time?
Because if you're 21 and you're still going back to what Kendrick did when he was 14, that might be inappropriate as well.
Yeah.
And the other thing you have to consider is, if you're doing a program that's more advanced, it's probably for someone who actually knows how to recover. I find that most people have really poor recovery habits. There are programs that are written that are for 3 or 4 days of training, and that's for someone who is more of a beginner who may not understand all the recovery methods or take it as seriously. Even if you know how to do it, are you doing it?
Yeah.
And if a program's tearing you up, it may have everything to do with just like how serious are you taking recovery. It may not even have as much to do with experience, but usually experience and recovery kind of go hand in hand.
You might be doing a Russian secret squat training program, but you forget that like there's a really cool. You guys in the audience can go out to YouTube and type in Klokov Shaiko. I forget how you Sheiko. You'll come up with a channel and there's an hour-long interview with Dimitri. He talks about his business and training ideas and everything. It's really awesome. Read it. You won't be able to listen to it because it's in Russian, but read it. But he makes that point. It's like what you see is what you're missing out of this CrossFit culture. A few things. One was like the culture of physical sport where like you don't step over or slam bars necessarily. There's a way you behave in a gym. Another thing was like you don't understand that we are driven to succeed. There's no like outside work or screwing around. You train, and I think he said specifically like you do fuck else, but sauna and eat and sleep.
Right.
He goes, if you're not sleeping, what's the point? Like he even says that you can have the training program.
All your
master.
activities are to be a better weightlifter.
You can have all the borscht you can fucking eat. You can have all that. You can have Russian chicks massaging. You didn't say that, but it'd be awesome. That's a plus. But like, but he makes a point. He said all the pharmacology you can speak of. He's like, but if you don't sleep well, none of it matters. It's like these fundamentals. Like, so if you're not doing like big recovery methods like some sauna or light massage and like sleeping properly and knowing how to feel your effort and building a habit of strength, then nothing else matters. No fancy. You won't be able to do a 10-week cycle of squat training and survive. Your just legs won't stop. They'll stop working 3 weeks into it.
Yeah.
That's all he has to say about
Close
that.
the book on that
I'm
point,
with you on
Michael.
that though. Like
Good job, Chris.
Basics are always best. Like people come to me and they'll be like, "Man, like I know the bottle of my ZMA says I should take 3 pills a night, but I'm kind of a bigger guy. Do you think I should like take 4 pills a night instead?" And they're like, "That's like this little detail." And then I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Like, have you tried 3 yet and felt the effects, or have you tried 4 and felt the effects? You're not really gonna know. Just try it out and see how you feel." Which is a very loose answer.
This is not fertilizer, bro.
But then you ask them something like, well, are you getting enough sleep already? And then they say something like, well, I sleep 6.5 hours a night. And you're like, well, fuck, like, if you're not doing that, your ZMA doesn't really matter. You get way more results by getting a little bit more sleep, which is way fucking easier said than done.
By the way, you'll know when you start taking too much ZMA because the side effect will be you'll get the squirts. So,
yeah, you don't get the squirts. But one of the things
you got to go to the edge and then come back.
I've been to the edge. I've stepped clear over it. I have found it, and now I can report back.
I thought it was a far, and I had to step back from the edge.
The same thing happens with beta alanine, by the way.
But I think in training, people always assume that training is let me. I don't go too deep in the weeds, but they think training is all about escalation and ever increasing complexity, right? Like add more shit in and you get a better result. But really, it's like add in enough where you discover something, and then it's helpful to cycle back through and go back and relearn things with new context, and then build a little bit and cycle through and kind of break things back down into fundamental parts and remaster them. Then step forward again. I think one reason why I love Diane Fu so much is that I think she's like a new breed of strength coach who sees that more isn't better. It's also awesome if, like, instead of growing the biggest tree possible, you grow the most awesome bonsai tree. We are always trying to make it the perfect shape where you build and you come back down and you relearn how to pull again and shit. Like this Chinese guy comes in and teaches you, well, you could also think of it like this, and you go, whoa, and you work on your pull more. Like you build a craft out of it. And then like you don't even worry about the weight because then you realize that, well, I've mastered it so much I can snatch where the fuck I want. Like it doesn't matter at that point. You realize that progress comes from craftsmanship, not necessarily just rush to build. You get a big shitty building if you rush to build something.
I mean, you see people do that all the time. They're doing a squat program, but their mechanics are still really poor. Yeah. They're folding over at the hips heavily because they don't have requisite ankle mobility.
You can add weight.
It's kind of like that guy. He drops in a group. He's in I think he's in our muscle gain challenge group, and he's like, Mike, how can I get better at overhead squats? I need to get stronger at overhead squats. My shoulders are giving out on me. I think I've even talked about this on the show once before.
It's a great example.
It's a perfect example of the misconceptions that people have. And he's like, how can I get better at overhead squat? And I look at the video, and he is like, his torso is at 45 degrees. He's putting his shoulders in a position they're not made to be in, and it's all because he lacks ankle mobility. And I go, he's like, what do I need to get stronger at overhead squats? I said, you need to work on your ankle mobility.
Or if you tend to work on that after you do like CTB tried to do that shit last night in my garage, and he looked like that, but because his legs were crushed from the shredded workout.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to work on it on days that don't make sense to work on, like if your legs can't even bend and you're trying to work your overhead squat positions, or that's like your day for working snatch technique. Yeah. But you just did like prowler sprints or hill sprints or something the day before, and you did like 5x5 squats, and now like my shoulders are so stiff, like. And yeah, my legs are also crushed. Like that's another factor that would make you not perform well.
Well, the thing is like the guy wanted to come back and be like, yeah, but how can I make my shoulders stronger? And I was saying,
give them a chance. That's how you get better.
You're missing the point. And a lot of times people just want to try harder, just like you were saying. People want to just stack shit.
Yeah,
instead of going back,
you'll break it when you stack it.
And so, the best answer for that guy is, if you want a heavier overhead squat, is fix your ankles. Yeah, there's ways to keep getting stronger, but doing more overhead squats is not the answer. Trying to do SOTS press may not be the answer. The answer is work on those ankles, hammer those ankles. If you do that for 3 months, you're gonna get You're going to see bigger jumps in your overhead squat than you ever would have with any weight training.
And the people make a mistake with that.
You're just out of position the whole time.
Yeah, people will make a mistake with that too, and that they'll start putting all the focus on some of these things. They'll forget that they need to also be like training with purpose too. It's like while you were saying, I was like, what, it'd be cool. Like if I could go back and do my powerlifting again, what I would do is probably for a training block where I want to prepare my general fitness and general strength and a workup, and then do a competition that was big. Like maybe it's a year of training or 6 months of training. It'd be cool, like if I knew I had a problem with my ankles, then that's fine. I'll just push, and I'll know it's something I work on, but I won't just be distracted by it. I'll build and get strong, and then when I do my meet, and there's another period for general preparedness, it makes sense to say, right, instead of just charging forward like most lifters do with a bad habit, because they can still get stronger. Why not like just be a little patient, spread out your training goals and the things you want to hit, and go like, I'll go back and I'll work on this training cycle, repeat that effort, but with a little bit more upright posture, let's say, and a little bit better shoulder rack. My bench will improve a little bit because I'm not wearing my shoulders so much. I can drive my ankle range of motion up a little bit. The loads won't come down drastically because I'm just working on a little bit, but I can still progress and not feel like I'm losing ground because I'm still going to be right where I'm at. If you had a couple of big long cycles where you refined yourself like that, you'd be really strong, but you would have resolved things in a way that didn't cause you too much like delay.
I think most people, they need a lot of experience before they get to that point. I think it took you a lot of experience to get to that point. It's it takes a lot of injuries and kind of training for 15, 17, 18 years, and you go, oh.
Well, hindsight,
sometimes,
it's easy to see it,
sometimes taking a step back is the way forward. Progress was it? I saw a cartoon the other day, it's not always a step forward. Taking a step forward might be the step right off the cliff, So sometimes progress is taking a step back.
Yeah, you don't appreciate progressions until you have some amount of experience, unless you can't physically do a movement. Like if you can't do a dead hang pull up, then you're like, man, I need a progression, and you jump right to it and you really appreciate it. But if you walk right in the gym and everyone's doing back squats, you want to do back squats too. You're not like, whoa, I'm gonna go goblet squat while y'all back squat.
Right.
No one does that right off the bat until they try to back squat. Maybe they can't do it for some whatever reason. Their technique doesn't work. They have bad mobility. They have bad technique. Yeah. They can't. Maybe they have poor shoulder mobility. They can't even reach the bar. Like shit like that happens, and a goblet squat or a front squat is probably better for that person. But they'll try to back squat anyway and just be like all in a screwed up position. You see that in bodybuilding magazines all the time, where like their fingertips are barely on the bar. They get this wide grip and they can barely reach it.
And then
but they still want to back squat instead of just front squatting or using the safety bar or whatever.
Are squats safe? And you go, well, not in some ways. No, I mean,
not like he's doing it.
Back handsprings for me aren't safe either. I don't know how to do this shit.
That's right.
No gravity and shit.
Hey, Chris, you were talking about kind of tying in personal development with progression as well. As like, I think part of some of the lessons that you've learned, some of the lessons I've learned in strength training, kind of coincided with some
Yeah.
You know, some things that happened with us and probably Doug as well is like things happen in our life that helped us on the personal development side that kind of
we all know people
you
who
step back and you look at just progression in life in general.
Yeah.
It's not just about strength progression; it's about progression in anything.
People who really love the barbell, like you could probably pull out these stories out of Zach Evanesh and Diane, all of us, and like all of our mentors. They'd probably tell you that it's the barbell was a tool of like self-development. Like what it really is like an evolved chunk of metal that we have worked with, and it's worked with us until it's now like on a LECO level, and we are now people who see the value in training. So like as you go along, like there are people we know right now in our old like fighting clubs and powerlifting circles, and if we did some bodybuilding, you can think of the guy you knew in the bodybuilding gym this fucking guy had been there forever. He's still there. He's going to hit the same thing. He's going to work for the same like cycle of movements. But the progression doesn't lead him to like trying a new sport. Like for us, we fucked around with bodybuilding stuff because it was so fun and it's still worthy of fucking around with and working with because it's got a lot of value. It'd be good to have some progress built in, but I love that time of my life because I got to try everything and have fun. And kind of the festering there allowed me to kind of learn the culture and observe some of these characters. And there's a group of powerlifters who influenced me. Like they were saying shit like, man, you need like 12 weeks to like build something. I was like, well, what do you mean? Like I had no idea what it meant to like work on a plan to like step up. I just figured you come in and you pump a big tire that was strength. And like the more you just did this shit, the bigger you got and the stronger you got, man. Like I'll just keep doing 3x10 until I'm fucking huge. Like Hulk Hogan in his prime.
That's what I did too. Yeah,
like that. But that was just an interesting way of strength that to see in strength.
For the
that
record,
works.
it worked.
It worked.
It did work back when you were doing it, and it probably still works to some degree. It's not necessarily bodybuilding even. It's just resistance training. Bodybuilders happen to use resistance training. That's
like preparation.
three sets of 10. And if it's an incline dumbbell press, like CrossFitters don't do that often, and bodybuilders tend to do it more, but it doesn't make it bodybuilding necessarily. It's just resistance training.
The thing that I missed when I was doing that, I was doing a 3 sets of 10, 5 sets of 10 or whatever like that, and I would change programs every 5 or 6 weeks. I would change the rep schemes and things like that, which is good. However, there was no progression in mind. I made changes so that for variety's sake. I didn't make changes for progression's sake.
Yeah, that would be useful.
And the progression, my idea was squat a lot, press a lot, pull a lot. And I did that, and I just kept variety in there, which this is pretty common with most people, I think. But I never thought about progression and volume, never thought about progression and intensity. I never thought about deloading. And at 15, 16 years old when I started, why even consider deloading? You know what I mean?
You certainly didn't need to do it as often.
Potentially not necessary, especially if every few weeks you went to like summer camp or something, and that was, I don't know if I was going to summer camp at 15.
Some progression is what you want.
Who never went.
Some progression you want, like you're saying, but you also, we want to make it clear
Family
that
vacation.
I want to make it clear that a few years doing this at least, or in our case, like maybe a decade of doing it, is really good because you build a lot of musculature and your skeleton adapts and you learn how to do all kinds of pulls. Like if you go in for a quote back day and you know that I'm supposed to pick a deadlift movement. It's like some days you might do like a machine thing or something. Well, then some days you'll do like a deadlift and you go, wow, this is harder. You'll discover. Some days you'll do it with dumbbells. Some days you'll do it like stiff-legged style. Some days you'll do it like on some kind of other apparatus or a different kind of barbell or a fatter barbell, whatever. If you came in and did a pull and you just worked up to something heavy and you always try to improve a little bit, if you didn't have a ton of structure, that's okay because you're just discovering yourself and you're building a good habit of going to the gym and thinking of ways to train yourself and you're learning and all this. It's a great phase. You need it. Like CrossFitters skip it, go right to like a 5-3-1 thing immediately, or they go right into like they find on a blog a big training program that somebody they know is doing, but they've skipped the preparation. They haven't like spent 10 years doing a bunch of back raises and glute hams and ab work and bracing exercise and haven't learned their pulling mechanics from the age of 13. Like you've skipped a lot of things that the Kendricks of the world do. Or the strongmen or the powerlifters or whatever. The people you see who you admire, you're skipping their stages.
Well, I think with CrossFit, that's kind of like that's the first step in a progression for a lot of people is just showing up to the gym a few days a week. And I see too many, I want to talk about what a progression looks like for a beginner. And I think a lot of times, should we take a break? We'll take a break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about what a progression looks like for a beginner.
We could probably go a long time with this one. Part 5 coming your way.
I wrestled in high school, picked up some jiu-jitsu after that. But between those two, I started working out with a couple of meatheads, you know, doing bench press, curls, things like that. Never doing legs. You know, the standard gym guy workout. Never really got anywhere with it, you know, just enjoyed my time at the gym, you know, kind of socializing. I've done CrossFit since 2009, and I started playing with the barbell just a little bit, you know, doing some overhead squats and front squats, thrusters, you know, basic Metcon. I really shied away from doing strength training because it was intimidating. You know, I'd never been a strong guy. At 130 pounds, I could always play that size card. I could always say, okay, yeah, I clean, you know, 220, but come on, I'm 130 pounds. But I've been CrossFitting since 2009, so it was time for me to nut up and do something different. And so, you know, as an athlete, I was like, what is the next step for me? You know, it's time to gain some weight and time to find some strength. I'd say the biggest thing that sparked me to do the Muscle Gain Challenge was a simple workout that I did with a buddy. It was 12-9-6 of 185-pound power cleans and ring dips. Like, oh, that's a 90-second workout. You know, he crushed it. And it took me 12 and a half minutes to be put down that hard by a workout. It was really like a blow to me. So, you know, that was the evolution for me. It was like, I have to get stronger. You know, I don't feel capable at all. A 6-month program, I'd say right now, even for a somewhat experienced lifter, is still, that's a long time to commit. You know, you're used to 9, 12, 13-week, you know, strength cycles. Now we're going double that with 26 weeks. You know, when you realize that, how long that is and what a commitment it is, you know that, you know, you got to do it. That's 6 months of your life that you're going to set aside to get really fucking good compared to what you were. And that's what it takes. The volume absolutely blew me away. I had no idea what I was in for volume-wise, because this is coming from somebody who lifted, you know, Monday and Thursday. That was the days I lifted, that was it. You know, one lift, snatch on Monday, clean on Thursday. I might squat on Saturday. It was hard, but being stuck where I was ready for a challenge and just something different. The conditioning in the Muscle Gain Challenge is perfect complement to the program. It's short and intense workouts that are really there to help you kind of maintain your abilities. You know, your ability to do pull-ups and muscle-ups and things like that, all those needs are addressed. And so, you know, a lot of people think, again, with a Muscle Gain Challenge, oh shit, I'm gonna gain 20, 30 pounds. My pull-ups are gonna suck. I won't have handstand push-ups, and that's all bullshit. Because they make you do those things multiple times a week. All the skills that you know need or value will remain intact. Before the Muscle Gain Challenge, my nutrition was pretty zone paleo because I was so into CrossFit. I think that I was underfed. You know, for breakfast, I remember having 3 blocks of egg whites with some almonds and some unsweetened applesauce. And it was like a 3-block breakfast. I guess I didn't think about eating for my goals, but food is the most important tool that you can use to get strong. I was wanting to be super healthy and have this zoned out, you know, paleo type diet, but I also wanted to be a lot stronger. By abandoning those principles and taking on the proper nutrition, you know, I made a huge change. Just using the knowledge that they give you through the Faction Foods nutrition course, and all just the tips on nutrient timing, when to eat, you know, when to eat what, those things become a habit. And they actually introduce you to habits in the Muscle Gain Challenge. Here's habit 1, you know, weigh yourself daily. Habit 2, eat this after you work out. And those habits, I still use them, you know. After the first 4 weeks, I could tell that I was on the right track. My first time maxing my back squat during the challenge, I made like a 15-pound PR, and it was the first time I'd ever squatted, I think, 275 pounds high bar. And I was like, okay, this shit works. When I started the challenge, I was 130 pounds, had a 2x bodyweight back squat, like on the dot. I think I was 260, 265 on my squat. At the end of the challenge, I was over 150 pounds. I had a 300-pound front squat and a 365-pound back squat. So my squat went up 100 pounds during this muscle gain challenge. Competing in weightlifting was part of, I think, just like a natural progression. If you do this, you know, runners run 5Ks, 10Ks, you know, CrossFitters compete in CrossFit competitions, and you get into weightlifting, and I think it's just a natural progression to want to do a competition. My goal is to try to maximize my strength at the current body weight that I'm at now and compete in December at the American Open. And then after that, if I feel like I'm kind of maxed out on my body weight, maybe bump it up a weight class and kind of relive the whole muscle gain challenge thing and see how far I can take this. Strength helps build confidence, and a confident person walks, you know, differently than someone who's unsure of themselves. And being strong and just having that whole thing about you, I think, is attractive to people. Chicks definitely dig that. Being stronger has absolutely changed me fundamentally and just the way I think and feel about things. Definitely more patient. I'm nicer. I'm happier, more confident. And I can help move your couch a lot more efficiently now.
All right, welcome back to Technique Quad, and welcome to take 2 of this first video, since I just did the whole damn thing and we're reshooting the whole thing because I word vomited way too much information. Now I'm going to break it down and make it even more basic. This video is the first video in the squat, for the squat series rather. We're going to do an overview video right now and mostly focus on the basics and air squatting, and then we're going to come back in video 2, we're going to do front squats. Video 3, we're going to do back squats, and then we're probably going to do a whole bunch more videos on squatting. But those are the first 3 we got planned. So again, this is an overview video, and all the basics are going to be covered here, and then we'll talk about the details of all the barbell movements down the line. First, if you don't know what air squat looks like, it looks like this. Basics, just your own body weight all the way down, all the way up, just like that. So I'm going to talk about just the basics there. Number 1, starting with my spine, probably the most important thing that you need to think about when you're squatting is to keep a normal, neutral spine. So from the side, whatever my back looks like this, if I have a normal curve that goes slightly into my body at the very bottom here, since the most common injuries with your back and squatting happens at the very, very bottom, that's where I do not want to round. I want to keep a normal, neutral spine. So here, ribs down, butt goes back, and my back position shouldn't change. I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to kind of sink down like that. And my back is still nice and straight. My back position didn't change at all. It just moved in space, but it didn't actually change form. Okay? If you're a person that either rounds like this right away, which would be really extreme, usually it happens at the bottom like that, and then you kind of butt wink and then you get it back at the bottom. Here'd be a butt wink. I'd round, and then I'd get it back on the way up. Okay? Not the worst position you could be in, but it's not good either. So you don't want to butt wink, you don't want to round your back, but you also don't want to hyperextend. I don't want to be here and then go like this. Because see how my back is like super curved now? Stripper booty. Stripper booty, that's right, it's working. Okay? I don't want to do that, not in here anyway. I don't want to break and then go down. I want to keep a normal, neutral spine. Butt goes back, but my back position stays the same. So that's point number 1. Always keep a normal, neutral spine. You never want to hyperextend, and you never want to hyperflex, which means to round your back. Okay? Point number 2, knee position. I never want my knees to dive towards each other like this. Anytime my knees dive towards each other, if my upper leg is going that way, and my foot is going that way, that means this bone is curving that way, and this bone is curving the other way. And what that means is that they're going opposite directions, and that means I'm twisting my knee. My knee is designed to bend. It's not designed to twist. When you twist your knee, that's how you tear your ACL. It's how you tear your meniscus, and it's how you f your knee up. So don't do that. You want to just bend your knee. You never want to twist your knee. So in order to get around that problem, number 1, I don't want to toe out super far, because then I would have to push my knees out super far. Most people don't do that. Their knees would go forward, and I'd twist my knees. So I want to have either toes pretty much straight ahead, or maybe just toeing out a little bit. That's not a bad thing necessarily to toe out a little bit, depending on who you are for a variety of reasons, which I'm not necessarily going to touch on this video. Those are details. But as long as you're kind of in this normal range, you're probably okay as long as your knees are out over your feet and they are not diving towards each other like that. So at the bottom, I should be like this. If I drop a line straight down from my knee, it should land somewhere either on my foot or right in front of my foot. It should never land to the inside of my foot, okay? If you look at me from the side right here, if I squat down and my knee is down here and my foot is over here, then I'm hurting my knee. Even if it doesn't hurt in the moment, it's going to hurt eventually. Eventually, you're probably gonna have to have surgery once you blow your knee out. So most injuries aren't a one-time deal. They're doing something wrong over and over and over again. You get a little bit of tearing, a little bit of tearing, a little bit of tearing, and then eventually it breaks for good and you get a catastrophic injury and then you're out for a year or 2 years after having surgery on your knee. So knees out means knees not in. It doesn't necessarily mean I need to push my knee out further than this. Maybe a little bit, but any further than that is totally unnecessary. I'm just trying to get back to neutral, back to normal. I'm twisting my knee one way this way. I'm twisting it the opposite way if I keep going out that way. I'm way more likely to get hurt this way than this way, but that has its own set of problems. You're just trying to get back to normal, okay? So that's point number 2. Point number 3 is I want to keep my heels on the ground. I'm always trying to squat, pushing through my heels or pushing through mid-foot. I never want to be on my toes like this. If my heels are coming off the ground like that and I'm putting all the weight on the ball of my foot, then I'm taking the stress away from my hips. I'm putting a whole lot more stress on my knees. It's much harder on my knees. There are some minor exceptions to that rule, but even those exceptions, if I'm like this, my heels are still on the ground, even though center of pressure might be mid-foot or maybe even forward. If I'm catching a heavy front squat and I push my knees forward and I get a little bit mid-foot and I'm not super heel heavy, you know, that's potentially okay. As long as you don't drop the lift if you're trying to hit a PR in a competition, that's fine. Guys like Tommy Kono, former, you know, one of the best athletes in the world for Olympic weightlifting, you know, decades ago, he used to talk about squatting on your toes, and that's kind of what he was talking about. So there are some exceptions to that rule. They're very minor, and they probably don't apply to you in most cases. You want to squat on your heels 99.99999% of the time, okay? So heels always down, knees always out, back always straight. If you can keep all those things in mind, then for the most part, you can be able to squat in a healthy manner without getting low back or knee pain in the process, okay? If you are teaching brand new people and you're a coach, teaching an air squat, you know, is a great tool. If you're having trouble with a new client that's, or rather they're having trouble learning the air squat, there's a few things you can do to help them learn a little bit faster. One thing is to give them a plate or a kettlebell and teach them a goblet squat. So anytime I hold something in front of me and I squat down, I consider it to be some variation of a goblet squat. Having this weight in my hands right in front of my chest or my face makes it where I have a counterbalance, which means I can lean super heel heavy and I don't fall over. And also having this weight out in front of me, having the weight out in front of me here makes me fire all the muscles in my core and torso area, and that adds a lot of stability to my spine and just makes it easier to have that stability and to stay balanced. So counterintuitively, it is heavier, but it makes the movement easier to learn, especially with new people. So if you're having trouble with air squats, then try a goblet squat instead and see if anything shakes up. Usually it's a little bit easier to get lower on a goblet squat with good technique, okay? This is all being said that, or this is all said kind of with the assumption that you know how to check for mobility restrictions. You know how to see if they obviously don't have very good ankle mobility or they obviously don't have very good hip mobility. You know, if they have mobility restrictions, you need to address those separately. Our maximum mobility course that I put together is designed to do exactly that. If you're interested in mobility testing, you can check out that product in the Barbell Shrugged shop. But for today, you just need to be able to recognize if mobility is the thing that is limiting your client's range of motion as opposed to just them not understanding exactly what to do. Okay? One final thing is to use Gray Cook's concept of reverse patterning, which is where you take somebody and instead of starting them at the beginning of the movement, which is standing up normal, this is kind of the end of the movement, and then they go back to the beginning of the movement. You switch it, and you start them at the end, and then they go to the beginning, and then they come back to the end, which basically means they start sitting down.
Oh, no, you didn't.
So if I have someone just sit down normal, maybe they sit down normal and they sit like this normally. Well, that's a bad, if you sit like that, it's not the end of the world. A lot of ladies sit like that. That's totally fine, but it's a bad position to squat in. You don't want to have a bunch of weight on your back with your knees damn near together like this. So you can have someone sit down on a box, and then you can grab their foot, and you can put it where you want it. Say, put your foot there, pull your heel back a little bit. If their knees are in like this, put your hands on the outside of their knees. Say, push out against my hands. They'll push their knees right out over their feet. Say, okay, great. Keep your knees right there. Don't move. Now sit up nice and tall. See if they can sit up nice and straight. If they're sitting like this, and you tell them to sit nice and straight, and they go, ugh, then the box is probably too low, and they don't have very good mobility in their hips or whatever. Thoracic spine, they might be locked in position for whatever reason. You probably need to take a plate like the green plate on the ground, put it underneath my butt, raise me up a little bit, try again, and then build them up to a position where they can actually get nice and tall, heels down, knees out over their toes. Once they have those three things established, then you can say, okay, now lean forward a little bit, drive through your heels, stand up, and then look to see how they do it. If they can be in that position, in a good position, on the box or the bench or whatever they're sitting on, and then they can stand up in a perfect position, then you can say, great, now squat back down. And they can use the box at that height as a teaching tool to put them in the right position so they get used to that pattern. Eventually you can take the box away, or you can lower it down, and they can progressively go lower and lower and lower as they learn how to do the movement and as they develop more strength and more mobility in those lower and lower positions. So the goblet squat and squatting down to a box is an excellent way to teach new people how to squat. So that's it for the overview video. All of these concepts, they're the basics, but basics are best, and they're going to be used when you're front squatting, back squatting, and overhead squatting. So even though we didn't use a barbell in this movement, still all these concepts you're going to use the whole rest of your life. So take the basics seriously. In video number 2, we're going to talk about front squats. In video number 3, we're going to talk about back squats. And then again, we'll probably have a few extra squat videos, but I haven't decided what those are going to be yet. But if you want to check those out, they'll be on barbellshrugged.com once they are finished. So go to barbellshrugged.com. Click on episodes at the top of the page, click on Technique Wad, and you can check out all the videos in the library on the site. I will see you another day.
And we're back.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so talking about what exactly a progression looks like for a beginner, and I think even what we end up doing is we start thinking about the science of things, and we start thinking about training programs, and these are the first things that pop in our heads. But as we were talking about the topic of progression, we start talking about people who are starting to train. Is the first step in your progression is probably to show up to the gym 3 days a week. The second step in your progression is to show up to the gym 4 days a week. And until you're showing up to the gym 4 days a week, maybe 5. I say 4 is probably the minimum before you have to start taking let's really start picking out a program here is until you're showing up and working out 4 days a week, the biggest gains you can make is just being there 4 days a week, every week.
And your one-page pamphlet is, quote, be there. Be there.
All too often,
go to the gym.
All too often, people want the secret formula. They think that doing this special squat program or this special diet or whatever, because all this progression stuff also is the same for food and supplements and all that kind of stuff. Why jump into some advanced nutrition stuff when you haven't even mastered the basics?
Until you change the conditions you're living in, then nothing in your life will change. Like you have the conditions that promote sleep, and the conditions that promote physical activity, and the conditions that promote good nutritional habits. Like Doug always says, like if you want to eat well, you don't pick out a program or a diet. So you have great fresh produce and shit in your house, and because it's there, you're gonna eat it. That's the first step. You don't have to go past that until you know that you need to buy great food and have it around. The same thing goes for training. If you're in a gym, because you're there and there are fit people all around you, that's already enough to have you start getting fit, because you're going to start just doing what they're doing and realize it's fun, and now you're off to the races. So these are the basic habits where if this isn't in place first, then nothing else makes sense.
Yeah, the people you surround yourself with that's one of the biggest influences in your whole entire life. So if you go to a CrossFit gym, all you have to do is show up. Like, to your point, if you go to a regular gym, maybe not, you show up, you're kind of confused, you're lost, you walk around, you just kind of look at the machines and you go, I should do that one. I don't know, I guess I'll stretch, and then you go home.
Yeah.
If you're really confused, you're brand new, you don't know what to do. You go to a CrossFit gym, you can just walk in. There's people all around you that have similar goals, that they want to get fit, they know how to train.
Yep.
The coach is going to show you exactly what to do. Everyone's going to do it all together. All you have to do is walk in the door, it'll handle itself, and then you can walk out.
Boom.
That's the main benefit
Same
of
thing
being at a
goes for
CrossFit gym
strength.
specifically.
And if you don't have a CrossFit gym, say you have the garage gym, or you have, you're at the Globo gym where there's not any coaching going on or groups going on, do a program that you can do 3 to 4 days a week, maybe 5 days a week if you want to get aggressive. I recommend just doing 3 or 4 if you're a true beginner.
You can always add later.
Yeah, so the idea is
like adding salt to a dish.
Let's show up at least 3 days a week and do something fun. Do something you enjoy. You want training to be enjoyable, and if that's something that's not CrossFit, that's okay. If it's not weightlifting, that's okay. If it's playing lacrosse or something, maybe that's just what you need to do for now. But show up, do it 3 days a week for at least 12 weeks. Until you've done that, you have no business trying to find the secret sauce, trying to find that program that's going to work for you, because that training frequency is going to be the most important factor.
It's like you jumping behind like a F-150 student wheel and freaking out and crashing and dying. You don't want fanciness up front. You just you won't know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to teach a kid how to drive a Ferrari on the first day.
It won't make sense. So.
No sense whatsoever.
It's awesome. It's fucking righteous. It'll get you laid. It's sexy.
But you'll die before you can get
But
laid,
if you don't know what you're doing, kid, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, so, once you get past that stage of you show up to the gym 3 days a week, you're showing up frequently, you're eating right-ish, and then what do you do now? You feel like you want to start making progress. You want to take it to the next level. Whatever. I think the first thing people should do when they start looking for a program with progression, like, you got to define what it is, your goal. You have to have a goal to start with. Some people go, I just want to get stronger. It's like, what does that mean to you?
It means anything and everything, man. You
Yeah.
got to define it really carefully.
So what does that mean to you? I think most people, it's like, hey, I want to be able to bench press more. I want to be able to squat more. I think those are pretty normal goals to have. And find a program that lasts 12, 16, 26 weeks, whatever it is, and do that program and stick with it for the duration. And find something that's a linear progression. So that means that you're doing just a little bit more than you did the previous week. Just find something that's very simple, that's made for beginners. Don't jump on an advanced weightlifters programming. Don't go look for. I've never done the Smolov squat routine, but from what I understand, it gets pretty aggressive at times. I just find something simple, something like the Texas method.
Yeah, I was gonna say people should get Mark Ripato's practical programming book. That's excellent. You should pick a program. But as you pick it, I think you should take some time to understand why it is an intermediate style program. How it's different than what you did, where you just came into the gym and you just added weight on everything whenever you could. Like now you're going to get strong enough to where you're going to cause fatigue, and now you got to know how to manage that so you can go to get strong again. So that's going to teach you why it's important, and it shows you some things. Like I think the best intermediate program for somebody, if somebody texted me, is like, hey Chris, I want to get strong. I've been lifting X amount of years, and I want to
we jump from beginners to intermediates. What
like
happened?
Texas method. No, I'm saying once you do the work and now you're ready to do something serious, like those kind of the Texas method style programs. And Mark's book is really excellent at kind of teaching you why this phase is now important and necessary.
Yeah, Mike touched on linear periodization. Like a lot of advanced lifters, people that have been lifting for like 15 or 20 years, like if you squat 800 pounds and you're like, we're going to do a linear periodization program, they're going to be like, oh, sure. Like, yeah, maybe like 15 years ago I would have done that when I was a beginner. Yeah. So a lot of advanced athletes will slam on that. If they've been in the game for a long time, they're like, well, that doesn't really work for me anymore. I have other things that I do that work for me.
Beginners here are saying they
Mike was talking about for beginners or maybe even some intermediate athletes to do something that is linear periodization based is a really good idea. Basically what it means is that you're just going to do something and then next week you're going to do a little bit more of that something, and then a little bit more of that something the next week. You're just going to build and build and build week over week over week with a little bit more than you did the week before. And because you're doing more than you've ever done before, you're going to get a little bit better.
People hear the
chatter. That will peter out after a while, and that's why super advanced athletes might not gravitate towards it. But for beginners and intermediate athletes, it actually works surprisingly well.
People hear the chatter and the arguments and the popular blog posts that bash one periodization style over another, and it's not proper. It's like you don't bash certain knives or the other ones. There's certain things that are made for certain jobs. And linear periodization doesn't work for some people because they're now too experienced to rely on that. Some people still do it. There's a lot of good powerlifters who still do progressions of linear work and they fucking deadlift 900 pounds. It's not like you do it, and if it stops working, you just try something else. That's all it is. Like if you do it for a while and you find that you need something with more variety because you're getting injured more often or you're not recovering the way you should, that's when you just build it in and you do only enough to get the progress going again. So you sort of slowly arrive at something that's really varied.
That's when you know it's time to switch.
Yeah, when shit stops working, you switch.
Yeah, because it will. Everything you do will stop working eventually. If you just do the same thing over and over and over again, it will stop working, guaranteed, and then you got to find something else to do. And that doesn't mean like drastically overhaul your whole program necessarily. It just means like make little tweaks so you can keep making some progress. So back to the beginner versus advanced athlete, if you take a beginner that squats 200 pounds for a set of 5 and you say, okay, do 5 by 5 at 200 pounds, and then next week, do 5 by 5 at 205 pounds, and then the following week do 5 by 5 by 210.
And if you can't get all 5 sets, do the 4. The next week, try to keep the same weight, but do the 5th set. Like keep just looking for ways to improve, and you're going to get really fucking strong.
Right, and that's a good example of making a little tweak without overhauling your whole program, just like I mentioned. But you could add 5 pounds per week for that beginner, and they probably can do it every week. They get 5 pounds stronger, and it's fantastic.
People
they get better and better every week.
Yeah,
but you can't
make the tweak.
But you can't do that with the advanced athlete. If you squat 800 pounds, don't just go, well, next week just do 805, and then the week after just do 810. And then do 815, 820. You just keep going up forever.
Yeah,
it doesn't really work like that.
The other comical thing,
your back breaks.
The comical thing with that is, I do a lot of linear progressions with some of the programs that we do, and especially in the beginning of the program, we'll start off with some linear stuff, and then it'll start changing over time because I know that the athlete has been in the program for 6 months. We now are going to start doing something that might be something I would call undulating or something like that. That just means that it's not a linear progression.
I do love the word undulation.
Yeah.
So everybody, we're going to do some undulation
or non-linear, whatever you want to call it. Might play around with some conjugate stuff for 2-3 months, something like that. So these are things that happen when you have a coach that has been watching you for a while and knows, okay. But what I think is sometimes comical too is people will try to do that linear progression model without deloading, without that unloading phase where they take a break. And they go, oh, it stopped working. It was like, well, you can't add 5 pounds every week for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you take like 3 months to just swim and play ping pong and shit after you do that because it gets really hard to recover from.
Say what?
Well, if you're like a Chinese
3 months
person,
of ping pong.
If you're a Chinese
add that
weightlifter,
into your programs.
You've been grinding hard for a couple of years. You hit a peak.
Pong.
You should like just
I have no idea what he's talking about.
There needs to be a time. Listen to me.
I'm talking about weeks into it.
I'm saying like once you do like a whole year-long linear thing, which people do, they do that, or it's a couple of years where they started new and now they squat 500 pounds. Now they're getting to the point where they need to make a change. It's useful then to stop that one.
What I'm saying is,
and take a break.
If you put 5 pounds on every week for 6 months, and, say 25 weeks.
Oh yeah. Well,
what I'm saying is
you unload for like 2 weeks.
That's what I'm saying is you can't expect, because I have a feeling people are going to hear this and go, I'm going to add 5 pounds to my back squat every week. Well, that's not how it's going to work. At some point, you're going to go, okay, that 5th set got really tough. And then that might be the next week. You might need to unload that next week and take a break for a week, let your body recover, and then resume training. And maybe even take a couple weeks back. Maybe you were doing 225 for 5, 5 sets of 5 at 225. You take a week off. Maybe you do some lighter reps or something like that. When you come back the next time trying to hit it hard, go back, start at 215 or something. Don't start back at 225. There's things you can do where you can kind of progressively wave up. And people get, they want to put, if you put on 5 pounds a week for 25 weeks, that's going to be 125 pounds in 6 months. That's phenomenal progress.
That's only a beginner
Probably not going to happen. I have seen it happen with some people in our programs, for sure. They're like, even I'm surprised. I'm like, you must have been a very big beginner, more beginner than I thought.
They were ripe
with
for
the progress. People make a
for
lot of progress in a short period of time. I'm going, okay, that's a beginner.
Yeah.
And at some point, they're gonna, as you were saying, Doug, they're gonna pair off after a while.
You can go for a long time. Like when I was in high school and I first started squatting, when I first started doing high bar back squats with my strength coach Mark Reel back in Washington State, the first time I ever did a true 20 rep back squat, I only had 155 pounds on the bar, which is about how much I weighed. I probably weighed 165.
Yeah.
What did I say? 165? Yeah, I weighed basically the same amount as the weight that was on the bar. It was 165, and I weighed right about the same because I was wrestling 168 that year.
Yeah.
And I put 5 pounds on the bar for my 20 rep squats every Monday for, I don't even know how long, for months and months and months.
So you did a single set of 20?
Yes.
Every Monday?
I built up to a single set of 20, and that was it. And then I usually try to do the same weight for a set of 20 on RDLs, and then I would do my lunges and everything else. And I put on 5 pounds a week pretty consistently for a while, and then a couple times it happened where I only got like 17 or 18, or like I didn't quite get 20. So the next week I would stay with this same weight and I would try to hit 20 again. I would get the 20, I would add 5 pounds, and then maybe the next week I again couldn't quite hit the 20, or maybe my form was like starting to get bad, so I would cut the set off or whatever, and then I would wait until I got 20 reps, and then I would add the 5 pounds. And I did that for a long time, and the last set I can remember doing in high school, I got up to 255 for a set of 20. I added like 90 pounds over the course of like, it's probably like a year and a half or 2 years it took me to really do that. And there was probably, I'm sure like there was some weeks I didn't do it like every single Monday, but I added 5 pounds super consistent in high school. Like,
here's the thing is people start feeling good one day and they want to add 10, 15 pounds. And I would,
don't do that.
I would suggest just 5 pounds a week is fast enough. You only have the rest of your life to get strong. You don't have to get 20 pounds stronger today.
Motherfuckers, do not
5
forget
pounds
Joe
is enough.
Do not forget Joe DeCino.
For the record, those are awesome. Those are awesome squats for putting on weight. Like doing 20 rep squats, they're super hard. They're like running. Yeah. They're like running. 100% full speed 400-meter sprints. They're rough sets.
Yeah,
but they do great for putting on muscle mass. Like I ended up bumping up like 20 pounds, and I went from wrestling 168, like I just said, to wrestling 189 the next year.
And also, you probably set your legs up to be fundamentally more strong than they would have been otherwise for the rest of your life because you did that. Like they're always going to be stronger because you did that for so long.
Oh yeah,
huge work capacity bump from that.
And that's that's another thing you're going to see with beginner programs. A beginner program should have relatively higher volume, and all that means is more reps. So you're going to be doing a lot more reps because a big piece of it is just practice.
You need that 10,000 hours, man.
The more times you do something, the better you're going to be at it.
What did you say? The guy who squats the most has squatted the most.
Rich Froning's probably done more CrossFit workouts than any of us, and that's why he's the best.
It's
because
work.
He does like 5 a day.
It's math.
It's just practice. He's just done it more. So anytime anyone's done something more than you, there's a good chance that they're going to be better at it than you. So a beginner program, a good one, isn't going to be like 1 rep max, and then like it's not going to be like just you're not going. An advanced program, you might do like a total of 10 reps on back squat. But that is definitely not what you need as a beginner. So as a beginner, you need to be doing 20 plus squats in a workout because you need those practice reps. It's not even about the weight you're doing, intensity, all this stuff. People are percentages and all this stuff. It has, forget about that and just worry about how many reps you're doing in a workout. Again, when I start beginners in a training program, we start with a higher volume training and then we work towards lower volume training where you've already mastered the movement, your movement's good, the muscles are prepared, and then you can add the intensity in later. But people all too often, they try to worry about the 1 rep max and they're not even back squatting their body weight yet.
This might be out there, Michael, but you were in the Navy. Did you actually ever have to, like, for the first part of your naval assignments, like just swab the deck for endless hours? Is that a real thing?
Oh, well, yeah. When I was in school, yeah, there was a lot of cleaning going on.
Yeah, why do they make it clean so much and shit?
Fucking asshole.
Like, why would they tell a young Michael Bledsoe, look, hey, I know you want to like lead a force of men or whatever, but first get your ass out there and mop that deck for the next 3 hours. Like, is it also kind of a similar thing where just the amount of being somewhere for a long period of time and repetition is going to do a whole lot of lifting early on?
I mean, and then also attention to detail. I think the cleaning had mostly to do with attention to detail, and if you spend hours a day practicing that attention to detail, you're going to notice.
Snatch is the same, right?
You're going to notice a lot of small things that are going on around you that you might not have otherwise. It's the same skill of like learning to clean, swab the deck and make sure every ounce of that is clean is the same skill that's necessary to make sure you don't get blown up or something like that.
Yeah, because now you can build a team that doesn't have any dirty spots either. That's the whole fucking point. People go, I want to be a commander. Why the fuck am I learning how to clean? I already clean shit. Well, your attitude sucks from head to toe. You're a piece of shit. You need to mob this deck. So mob it or swab it. Sorry, not mob it.
Yeah, no mopping happens. That's actually a big deal. People first get in the Navy and they use the word mop. Man,
fuck you. It's called swabbing.
You're about to get jumped on, bro. That boot camp instructor is going to be deep,
So that's what you do.
At least elbow deep in your ass, yeah.
So when you come in and like if you're going to slam bars and talk about banded squats and shit, you're being the guy who's saying mop. What you need to do is just master and appreciate the snatch for what it is and like learn how to really get comfortable with it. Like you're learning how to play guitar, like learn all your chords and shit, only you're learning how to pull the right way. And then later on you can do what Klokov does with his shirt off. But not until you learn how to do this shit the right way.
Yes. And then with the higher volume training, I think you also learn to recover too, because anytime you do higher volume training, more recovery is usually in need.
And hopefully you have enough money. And hopefully you have enough money for food, because you're going to start like, oh shit, you wake up in the middle of the night wanting to eat everything. Yeah. That's what the side effect of growth. Growth.
So we talked about the easiest, obvious way to do some type of progression by just adding 5 pounds on the bar each week, which it sounds so intuitive, but a lot of people don't do it in some cases. Like
it's too simple.
They'll put on 225 for their bench press or their back squat or whatever, and then they always just use 225, and they don't want to use like the little plate. They don't put 2.5s on the bar. Also, it seems like why would I even bother with 2.5s?
2.5s are magical.
They make them for a reason. They're there for a very good reason. You need them.
Good quote. World records are set with 1 kilo plates or half kilo plates.
Yeah, you'll see Klokov and those guys training and training, and a lot of times they're snatching just tiny metal plates. And
but some people go years using the exact same weights they use every time. They're like, oh, I always bench press with 185, and they never try to go until they can make the jump to 225.
You always bench press with 185. That's exactly right, asshole.
That's right. If you always do it, you're always going to do it. You're only going to be able to do it.
So we kind of talk about beginners a little bit. I kind of touch on advanced stuff, but usually like if you feel like that linear periodization model is kind of you're past that. I really think like finding another program is not your best bet. Your next choice is coaching, is finding a coach that understands where you're at in that moment.
Yeah, because then
they go okay.
Because at that point you need somebody to tell you when you need to rest more, because you're not able to figure it out, and you need to tell them when you should lift heavy, because you're going to want to lift heavier than you should. But what you need now is just for, like, linear is not the way you look at it. You look at it in terms like spacing between doses of a stimulus. Like Mike Stone always taught me, our mentor, that strength is really, you can really understand like medication. Like there's a certain response you're looking for from a dose. Like at first you might get a lot from a little, then you need like a big dose with maybe careful regulation of when the next big dose comes. If you want to keep like getting that drug to work, there's this escalation and a timing and a strategy. So from the beginner doesn't need much of that. You just need little doses, and you're so weak that you can just keep adding weight. But when you get strong enough to do damage to yourself, you have to have somebody tell you, you got to space it out. You want to squat heavy again, I know, but really now you need to worry about it next week. Or as you get stronger, now you need to worry about every 3 weeks going for a 5-pound thing. Or when you get really advanced, you need somebody to tell you, it's been 3 months of good training. Now we think you're ready to go for a big snatch PR. Like if you're Mike McGoldrick, maybe that's a year to work on a lift PR. But you need somebody. You won't do that on your own. You'll get greedy, you'll get impatient, or you'll criticize yourself too much, or whatever. You need somebody to help you see what you can't see.
Yeah, and I think finding your weaknesses and programming movements and exercises to annihilate those weaknesses, so that you can improve this other thing over here that may not make sense to you.
And it's not an ego thing. Some people don't want to have a coach who's like, well, I can figure this shit out for myself. Like, yeah, you can, but like for me, like right now, if I wanted to really seriously try to like. Let's say go into a meet and do a bench press record or something. I wanted to take it seriously and train. The best thing I could do, even though I've been training for 23 years, I should probably just pay like Travis Mash or maybe Mike to say, look at me, watch me train. Let's train again a couple times. What do you see I need to work on? Yeah. Even I can't see, because I'm a primate who's going to go towards his weaknesses or his strengths and avoid his weaknesses, and I'm going to cut corners and shit when no one's looking. I'm just going to do primate shit because I'm not being held accountable. Well, yeah. If I got Mike working with me, I'm going to hit what I want to hit in the meet, because we're just going to make sure it happens.
Yeah, you just need to be an objective eye. It's hard to be objective with your own training. And the other thing to note on this, and I think people in the CrossFit community are really good about this, is education. Usually after people, the first thing you need to do is, you embrace that the linear periodization, just making a little bit of progress from week to week. And then when that stops working for you, it's time to get, maybe get educated. So hiring a coach or learning about different types of periodization models and taking your education to the next level.
We talked about self-development, though. Like earlier, we didn't quite make that point. I don't know about how the guy who always benches 185 in the gym, to Doug's point, is always going to do that. He's always going to be the guy hanging out in the gym. But like the powerlifter might discovered powerlifting because he started there and found some guys and progressed to a stage where he wanted to develop his squat more. And he did that for a long time, and he squatted 800 pounds. So instead of like just spending too much time in that search, you get a clear result because you went at it in a clear, progressive way. Now you go, well, I've been there and I've been strong. I want to maybe use this strength in another way. You might lead you to CrossFit because you're doing what Mike's saying. You study as you go and you accumulate knowledge, and you take what money you have, even if you're a poor college student, you get to a gym, you study with Kyle Pierce if you're lucky, or Diane Fu, or whoever you can. You absorb. Dude, if you progress, you're just a meathead who's doing training cycles of 12 weeks, and you keep it up and you keep making these kinds of discoveries. In 5 years, you might have a podcast where that's your job, is just to talk about what you've learned on your journey. You could be an Olympic athlete. There's no telling what kind of profound transformation will occur and what you'll discover, because you just kept making little jumps and little well-organized tweaks in your life, and you didn't want to just stay where you're at. Like that, that mechanism drives huge change in people's lives.
And yeah, I mean, we're really trying to facilitate that with what we're doing with Barbell Shrugged as a whole. So not only are we trying to, when people are saying, I don't know what to do next, I want to get bigger and stronger. I want to prepare for CrossFit style competitions. I want to, get leaner or whatever. We develop programs so people can do that. And if you want to check those out, just, go to barbellshrugged.com, click on the shop, sign up for the newsletter. We'll notify you about that stuff. So we have training programs, and they're built to ramp you up from like beginner level. If you've been training and having fun, but you kind of like, now you want to do something that's beyond like, I just want to be generally fit and look good naked, but I want to really, go towards a very specific goal. We've developed programs that go to very specific goals, and it's not just a training program, but it's also a lifestyle program, teaching you, good lifestyle habits to help you reach those goals. So it's not just about, all right, this is how you should squat, this is how many sets. I mean, we do that, but it's also, this month I want you to really focus on sleep. Or, these are some recipes for success for this very specific goal. Because if you're trying to gain weight versus lose weight versus perform at a high level doing higher volume training, the nutrition is going to look different. Some people may want to disagree with me, but they don't know what they're talking about. So, but, it's a whole lifestyle program. And we understand that now. If we had people, I think Doug had this person growing up, Chris Moore and I did not.
No.
It had someone going, hey, it's not just about what you're squatting. It's about how you're eating, how you're sleeping, how you recover. And in addition to that, just like other stresses in your life, what is going on in your life other than that. And so we try to kind of cover those bases in our programs. And we're also developing things like Barbell University. So when you do reach that point where you go, I want to know more. I don't want to just know that this squat program works. I want to know why it works. I want to know like how, when it's appropriate to do it, when it's appropriate to prescribe it for somebody else. These are all things that we want to cover. So we kind of, our goal is to really cover these bases. The questions that I had when I was younger that I really wish were answered when I was a young man, it would have shortened this path quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
So the goal is, and I learned from some people, and I learned from some magazines, and I eventually learned from some people who are very educated. And what I want to do is make that access very obvious and accessible to anyone who really, really wants to learn.
Yeah, I'd say if I had two missions for what we'd want to do, I'd say teach people how to shorten their path, because if they can do that, they'll exceed what we do, and one day they'll just carry the path forward. Like they'll do something cool that we could never have thought.
They'll do something cooler than what we're doing.
If you're 20, if you're a college age kid, listen to this. Realize that when we were in college, there was fuck all for listening to. Like we listened to some music, maybe you found something online, and like that was
the internet.
Useful.
The internet was sparse in those days.
We had to read science books for Christ's sakes to get our education.
Well,
yeah, but now things are different. Now you can be 21.
When I was 15, I mean, the internet was just trying to load one of those GIF or JPEG files from Playboy.com. I was like, damn.
Yeah. When are the nipples gonna show?
It took forever for Jenny McCarthy to show up, It was like, but,
but when it showed up, you're like, this is great.
Yeah, but we now have the technology where we can pass this down much sooner in life.
But listen to me, young minds, young college-aged individuals.
Or high school.
Take these lessons.
High school kids,
high school, yeah. I mean, if you take these lessons, you shorten your path, and you do go get that Ripito book, or you read a book by Mark Devine. If you listen to what we're saying, or Zach's excellent book, The Encyclopedia of Strength. Zach.
Or Freestyle over here by Carl Powell. Man, we just
Yeah.
got books all over the place.
I love books. I love books.
Or Chris Moore's new book. Get
I love
Changed.
books so much that I've written 3. It's not the easiest way to try to make a living. Like what's in Zach's book, The Encyclopedia of Strength and Conditioning? It's like this is his whole reason for being alive. You guys agree? Like this is all Zach was ever going to do was like experiment on himself and help people out like righteously. So he's taking everything he's learned, he's put in here. If you read this, you learn these lessons, if you shorten your path, if you just keep at this curiosity you've got, you keep learning, you keep discovering what you can discover and keep adding 5 pounds in whatever way you can add 5 pounds. That means like maybe like a little unit of knowledge today, a little more of this, a little more of that. You keep doing this. By the time you are 33, 34, like we are or whatever, or you know, your late 20s, you're not gonna there's what you thought you would be, and then there's gonna be what you are, which is something that is really profoundly prepared to go out and fucking educate and inspire people to change themselves. And you're gonna know all this shit like the back of your hand. You're gonna be able to speak intelligent about how what they should do to fix a certain kind of problem based on where they're at in their life. You're gonna know all this shit. And then you're going to think of something much cooler to do than what we've done up to this point. But that's what we're going to try to do.
I hope
for you.
so.
And we're going to try to also maybe just make you see that strength is not just how much weight's on the bar. It's a lot of ways you can define strength.
Yeah.
We're going to try to show you.
Yeah, I'm excited about Barbell University, man. I feel like that's gonna like push the
full circle.
entire industry forward. Like that's a fucking game changer.
Well, I love it's full circle for us because we can bring back in people who like. Sometimes I get bummed like, well, now I just tell dick jokes and distract my friends in front of a microphone. Like I'm not using my sports science skills, but now because of this, we can go back and pull and remind people that no, we weren't like podcasters. We weren't like just gym owners. We were students of strength and conditioning for a long time. We studied with people who were masters of that craft, and we were young aspiring scientists and grad students and people who were more than happy, like thrilled to take like $700 a month in exchange for our life being strength and conditioning for 2, 4, 5, 6 years, where we were doing grad work and working shit jobs just to keep in the gym and train and to have the opportunity to talk about like discovering a young Kendrick Ferris. Like, what does this guy's technique mean? Like, fuck, we're blown away. Like, we thought there's only one way to jerk. Look what this guy's doing.
Yeah.
Like, why is he doing it? Like, wow, one day this guy's gonna do something, and he does. You know.
Yeah. I like having the mindset of always being a student. No matter how much you know, you don't know
Fred
at all.
Beachy style.
That's right, man. Zach's
says,
always a student.
Always be a white belt.
Dr. Fred
said.
Beachy,
That's right.
man.
Fred
Yeah,
Beachy, dude,
that guy's the man.
We started talking to Beachy before that podcast we did with him. If you have not seen it, stop this podcast and go listen to 144. That shit was amazing. When I started talking, Doug talked to him first, and I'm like, Doug's talking to this old guy. We're going to get him on the podcast.
I thought the same thing. I'm like, fuck, who's Joe making us? Now Joe's going to be wrong.
Joe
about it.
DeSena. Yeah, Joe DeSena. I stopped questioning that guy.
His book's right there, too. We got too many books
Spartan
in the room.
up. Or Spartan the fuck up, depending on what edition
About
of
to
the
lose a
book.
laptop. Yeah, so the thing about Fred Beachy is when I started talking to him, he was excited about coming on the podcast so he could learn. He was like, maybe is there something that you could teach me? He was asking me questions beforehand. I'm like, I'm going to interview you. But yeah, he was most excited about learning, and that's why he is where he is today. 85 years old, and he's
running hill sprints.
Running hill sprints at 85. I want to be able to do that. I can barely do that at 33.
He's my idol.
Oh God,
that dude is someone I look up to. I'm probably gonna I've got his card. I'm gonna call him up when I got questions now. But
like a ruthless pursuit of daily innovation in your life, coupled with like lighthearted curiosity, will fucking make you change the world in your way. Like, you're gonna find out what you can do to change the world some way. I just believe it. Like, it's just statistically, it's gonna happen if you just keep chasing it. You're gonna find something fucking cool. You're gonna find a big weapon. You're gonna be able to use it for good. Like,
I've got to go to. Well, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I find all the people that I know that are really, really good and really, really educated. None of them think they really know it all. They all are smart enough and have enough education, enough experience, enough knowledge and understanding to realize that they know a lot, but they also don't know what they don't know, and they always are seeking, and they know there's a next level to get to, and they're always striving to get there. And once they feel like they've reached a certain level and they've learned all they can in a certain category, they're like, awesome, moving on to the next category, and they're on to the next thing. They're not like, I did it, I'm done, I'm there.
Yeah.
That'd be like
There's
saying
no
like,
there.
I'm strong now.
Tony the Fridge said,
Tony the Fridge?
Yeah, so what day was it? Our last day in Vermont for the last episode we did with Joe is coming out soon, but we got up, CTP and I got up shivering after going to bed at like 1:30 in the morning, because that's what we do. We hustle, baby. We hustle. Writing show notes and getting like CTP making sure the YouTube upload's working good, because we're in the fucking mountains. You can see the full galaxy above you. That also means there's shit Wi-Fi. It's a correlation. Like there's no technology around, so CTP is like trying to get it, checking. I'm like writing show notes for Carl Paoli. We're just hanging out, talking.
He's never gonna say his name right.
Yeah, no, never.
Carl Paoli.
Paoli.
No, it's Pally.
Carl Paoli.
We'll have Carl.
His book's
teach
there
you.
too.
Yeah, but
Carl
we got
probably
up.
has a progression for teaching you how to pronounce his last name.
But we still got up at 5 a.m. because when you're in Pittsfield, if you don't get up and train with Joe, you're just missing like one of the most rarest opportunities in the world. But if you also get up and
being trained by a psycho.
But if you also, but hey, listen, man, if you also get up, and also another guy who's going to hike happens to be Tony the fucking Fridge.
Oh yeah.
Then you better get up and join him. If you don't know who Tony the Fridge is, that guy's coming on this show.
That's
probably in 2 to 3 weeks.
That's one of the biggest treats.
Is he going to be posted by the time we post this?
It'll be posted.
So.
Oh no.
Maybe.
If he is, you know who he is. If not, he's coming.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Whenever you hear this, if you haven't, search Tony the Fridge now. But we climb up there, and at the top, I go. We the night before we had done the show with him, I asked him. I go, hey, I pull up my iPhone. I go, hey Tony, can you tell me what it is you said about climbing hills, or reward? I said rewards. Like, what does it mean to get a reward? Is this something you deserve, whatever? And he goes, what does it mean to be at the top of a hill? Like, there is no like celebration at the top of a hill. You ask yourself, next hill. You don't need to celebrate it. Just keep going.
That's a great accent, by the way.
Yeah, you're doing really good. That sounds just like him.
Yeah, watch that podcast. Be prepared to cry. I've got to go. I'm actually in Memphis just for a couple days, and I have to go eat lunch with my mom and her new boyfriend.
Let me do the newsletter plug.
Yeah, so make sure before we go to pick up Chris Moore's book, Get Changed. Where can they buy this Barbell Shrugged website? I'm sure, right?
Yeah, next week at the time this pops, you're gonna be able to go to the merchandise store and see it as a link.
Yeah, so you'll go to the daily.
There'll be a merchandise shop you'll see linked all over for shirts and shit, but we'll include that book.
We'll send out an email, and you'll be able to get this book. I have read the first 60 pages. Yesterday, I was on the couch reading this, and I was like, this was the best thing Chris Moore has ever written, and I'm going to finish it very soon. I love it.
I appreciate you saying that, man. Can I do the official live version of the newsletter plug to finish it up, Doug? You going to
talk about the daily while you do it?
Oh, yeah. So those of you who don't know, the Barbell Daily, barbelldaily.com, is a new daily resource we are launching for you so that any day of the week, baby, you can get up, you can get your morning coffee going, you can go to the daily. So you type in daily.barbellshrugged.com or Barbell Day, doesn't matter. You come to the daily, baby, you're going to see a nice, high-value featured article there by somebody you know is going to teach you something useful for your pursuits. We're going to do that every day, and on there you're going to find a whole bunch of really high-value information coming your way very soon. By the time this launches, you'll have it.
Yeah, I got a big collection of articles from a ton of people that have been on the show, some that haven't been on the show yet, but it's a big aggregation of awesome training articles from a bunch of people that, for the most part, aren't us so far. It's all of our friends that are writing and contributing.
I did it because I wanted to create a place where ideas could mix. That's what makes me more interested in anything. Like, we can sit here and blabber on all we want, but when we get guests in here and we exchange ideas, magic happens. And if we can do that every day and do it for the audience and give them an opportunity to both submit stuff, you can go to publish.barbellshrugged.com. You can send us an idea. We'll help you write up something cool and get you exposure. We want people to hear your voice. But also now, very simply, you can see a cool comment from or a cool post from Diane Fu or somebody. You can ask questions. We'll get Diane on and maybe answer a few. I'll jump in. We'll all jump in. We'll create a daily place where we can just mix ideas and create an environment for learning. So it's pretty awesome.
So basically, we're about to have a fucking explosion of new free content.
Yeah, it'll like 10 times
every single day.
10x the free content basically within a very short amount of time. So people will just not have much room for complaining about what we're doing with our hours during the day. Making you shit that's gonna make you better is what we're doing constantly, man. 7 days a week. But yeah, I'm serious. Every day you'll find something, even if it's a short little useful thing. You don't need to be anything complex or you need to break down in 10 hours of study, but you'll find something valuable for you to make you better in some way.
Fantastic. Also, I want to do a quick plug for Barbell University. We're not doing this right now. It's probably going to come out sometime next year, but if you're a college professor or you know a college professor that has a ton of training experience and they're a competitive athlete, especially in the CrossFit space, and you want to be a potential contributor to Barbell University, you might even want to teach a course or you just want to help out in some way, definitely email us, email help@barbellshrugged.com, and just let us know who you are and kind of what your thoughts are on it. That way we can connect and start that conversation.
I got a plug too.
Yeah, go.
What's CTV plugin?
If you like this episode, please share it on Facebook, go to iTunes, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review, because that stuff really does help.
And best of all, to find out how I'm going to drop the ball in the live version. To find out how you can support the show, go to barbellshrugged.com and sign up for the newsletter.
You nailed it.
Yeah. To learn more about how you can support the show, go to barbellshrugged.com and sign up for the newsletter.